What's up, YouTube? So today I have two amazing guesses. This is actually a special video. We end up eating 100 Q&As on Patreon, and I thought to do something different for this one. Actually, this video will also go live to YouTube. And I have with me James and Will, two of my favorite people on the hobby. And we'll basically do the Q&A together. I have a bunch of questions from Patreon, from Instagram. If you guys want to join Patreon, link will be below the video. I also have a Discord server link below the video. And one thing that I have to say is when I do this type of conversations, I tend to forget to ask for a like at the beginning of the video. So if you guys are watching this, please consider to leave a like, not just for me, but also for James and Will. Will and James, let's start with Will. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm excited to do this.
No,
And congrats
thanks.
on 100 Q&As.
It's crazy, honestly, to think about that. I did already 100 videos for Patreon. James, how are we doing?
Yeah, doing good. Congrats on 100 videos. I don't even think I have 100 on my channel, but I just uploaded this morning, so getting back into it. But yeah,
Oh,
excited
really?
to work through questions.
I did.
I did post this morning.
You haven't watched it yet? I was
No,
watching it earlier this
I did.
morning.
I love James video. He knows that. But actually, so YouTube is already punishing you because did not appear on my on my
I
feed.
deserve to be punished. That's what happens when you leave for a month and a half. They just start taking away all your videos.
Yeah. So, guys, we have a lot of questions. Some are a bit more complex than others, but I guess we all share. We'll try our best to share the best perspective, the best knowledge we have on them. And I will start with the ones that are from Patreon for logic reasons. And Matthew Weiss ended up asking me this on Patreon. For one building a nest egg for the national, what types of cards, players slash grades, etc., are good to sell? Who is selling at good prices and who is likely time to pull the cord? Okay. So basically, from what I understood, is what cards are good to sell at national, players, grades, etc. So this is the type of question that I actually think you guys are probably better than me to answer this one, since I don't go to events like the national. So James, if you want to start with this one.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start here. If you're going to the national, you want the most obvious cards of the most obvious players from the most obvious sets in order to try and get the most eyes on it. That can be hard for soccer because there's not that many players that reach the mainstream for other markets, and a lot of people that are going to the national are trying to do the whole buy at X percentage and then flip for X percentage, and so they're only trying to use cards of players they know. So it's going to be guys like Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, Holland, and then some of the US players. But other than that, I would just say stick to the most obvious players from the most obvious sets, and then PSA slabs, because PSA slabs are just the easiest ones to transact in. Because if you have BGS or SGC, you have to do a bunch of calculations, and it just takes deals way too long.
No, that's great advice. Will.
Yeah, I think also like some of the players that are if you want to play sort of like a short-term flip, like the players that everyone has eyes on right now for like maybe the summer transfer window. So think like Osimhen, whoever wins the Champions League finals, which probably would be Holland, Foden, KDB, those sorts of things. Yeah, players that are excited for like the transfer window. And then I think also like it feels like there's like everyone's going sort of for like PSA 10s these days, like PSA 9 sort of you can sell them, people will pick them up, but it's more just like the prices of it have dropped for a lot of cards that are sort of like easily accessible. So I would say that. And
Yeah,
then
the
also
other
whichever
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say whichever new set just released also, whether that's FIFA Select or Obsidian, like people will want that. Like I remember like last year it was all about the like Obsidian floods, Obsidian Contras, red floods, blue floods, green floods, just because like that product was like the newest. And so everyone was like kind of like very hyped up about it. And it's always like with the whatever player is the rookie chase there. So like Kavitchka, is a good one also to throw out there.
Yeah, the other thing that does really well at the national, at least from what I've seen the past couple years, is just super high-end stuff in general. It doesn't really matter the player, but like flawless or eminence cards of pretty much anybody are really hot, because the people that are going to the national are going to the national and they're spending money to go to the national, and they're probably looking for unique grail type pieces. So just high-end stuff in general, it doesn't really matter the player, is usually gets a lot of attention.
Okay, I guess you guys end up sharing great insight about this question. I would agree. I think probably modern is better for this type of show.
Oh, it's 100% modern. Like the cards that are transacted to the national and the cards you see is like 98% modern. So I would stick to that era if you're looking to like play the flip sort of game.
Yeah, exactly. On card autos, that sort of thing, unless it's like, I don't know, like a Messi 71 biz, you know, like
yeah, that'll be the one card that transacts from pre-modern and vintage at the show. Like there'll be Alifas there, but people don't really transact them.
Yeah. I'll also throw in it possibly women's cards as well, just because of the World Cup coming up.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying this because I know probably since this is from the Patreon, there's a lot of people that focus on pre-modern and even vintage coming from my channel. But in general, this type of shows, they tend to be very good for modern. But if the idea is selling Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, I think even pre-modern of those players could do well. But I guess you guys end up sharing great insight. Actually, I will actually try to ask you another thing related with this. Do you guys think players like Pulisic, etc., are good to move in a show like this, or the hype around the World Cup is not there anymore?
I mean, they'll move like pretty easily, but you're going to be at current prices or a little bit below current prices. There's like no added hype to it, so you're not going to go out and you're not going to get, if the card is selling for $100 and it's Pulisic, you're not going to get $100. You're going to get like $70 or $75. So there's no like added benefit for that sort of thing.
I think it's easy to liquidate. So like if you want to cut your losses, and you know, like he's rumored to go to like Juve, you know, and stuff like that. So like just follow that story on with Fabrizio. But like you're not gonna get like people paying, as James said, overcomps for like a pulley card right now.
Yeah. So yeah, the great question by Matthew. Basically, again, I agree with everything you guys said. The best players to sell are probably the ones that will be hot. Probably maybe Haaland. I know there is an American guy doing very well in France. So yeah, the next question is from Niels and goes this way. Hello, is the 2006 Mundichrome Crystal Cards Lionel Messi 3078 hardest to get a PSA 10? Basically, he's asking if it's the hardest 10 to get of all the Messi cards. I'm not sure if you guys know what card I'm talking about. The Crystal 2006. I will try to put on the screen right now when I put the video on YouTube. But I know the gem rate is low for this. I'm not even sure if there is a 10, to be honest. And the question still continues and goes, and do you think that's because of condition rarity? It could happen that one day gets more hobby love. So I guess this is a very speculative question. From what I understand, is asking, since the card in terms of condition rarity seems so strong, could this be a good buy? Especially if the person can find a 10. I honestly do not love this type of questions, I have to say, since they are too specific. The problem with these cards, and I guess I can start, is I just don't think it's super relevant for Messi. That's the problem. It's still an early card, that's a good thing. Mundichrome in general tends to print a lot, but I would trust, basically, because is making a question, but also trying to provide some information that the card is very sensitive. And that alone, you know, sometimes we see PSA 10s pop on of cards that are really common, that are not even second year or third. Sometimes they are 10. They are not even less relevant than this one for Messi, and they go for a lot. So maybe this can also happen on this one. But in general, is not the type of card that I would touch it. I think it's an amazing collectible, but I would buy it in raw and grade it myself.
Yeah, I just looked at the PSA pop report because I didn't think there were any 10s of this. And in that set for Messi, there's no 10s and there's no 9s. So 8 is the highest grade. That would lead me to believe at this point that it's probably not possible to get a PSA 10 on that just because of the way the cards are made. Similar to the 2009 UEFA Trophy card that is impossible to get a 10 on. There's just certain cards because of the acetate, because of the era it was produced in, quality control, all this stuff. It's just not possible to gem. So I would lean in that direction for these. And knowing that fact, and like what Andre said, it's probably not that much of a key for Messi. I personally don't really think the cards look that nice, but that's a personal opinion. Yeah, I just don't see how it's a super key for him. If there is a play to have with these, it's just buying them raw and trying to find them in good condition. I definitely wouldn't be paying up for a PSA 8 because that's the highest grade right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's more of like a raw to grade. I think it's really cool, and you can like definitely find some niche collectors with it. Like people, might just want like a PSA 10 of Messi, and Messi collectors are have that sort of thing. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I definitely think like it's something to sort of tread carefully with, just because like you can see in the pop report that like it's really really hard to get anything over an 8, let alone an 8 itself, right? So like the most common grade is like a 7. And I think the other thing is like, but you do see some premiums, just like if we're in a theoretical sense, say if 10 popped up, I could see it going for like a few $100s, like just because like I remember, what was it? There was like a 96 Panini foot, which is like one of the most like easy Panini foots you can find, like even now, to like just rip for fun for like $80 for 100 packs. And like a Zidane there like went for like, what was it, like $500 on PWCC recently, and I was quite surprised about that for a sticker. So, you know, on the right day, on with the right crowd, with the right bidders, it's possible for sure. But I definitely think like it's not worth buying it already graded.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is what I tend to talk about fundamentals. That rarity is the most important thing, but is not the only thing. And in this case, is condition rarity, is not true rarity. And that alone also plays a factor, because if this was true rarity, the conversation would be different. But the card is just about that, it's just about that condition rarity. Maybe there will be a bunch of collectors that value that very high, and if that's the case, the card will do very well. Personally, I'm not on that boat, but does not mean this card cannot do well in the market. I see so many crazy stuff sometimes that this will not surprise me even that much if an 8 or a 9 or a 10 eventually do very well. But thank you, Nils, for the question. The next question is from Gonçalo Alemão, Portuguese friend actually. Said Q&A number 100. Congratulations on the achievement. Thank you so much. What would you say are the biggest difference in the market versus the Q&A number 1? So this was more or less 2 years ago. Versus now, and what actually is still the same? And will this last until the Q&A number 200? So I will start with the last part. I'm not sure. I think there is a scenario that I do. I don't know. Probably 200 is not that difficult, I would say, since I still have a huge passion for the market. One thing, and then my friends can also share the perspective on this one, that I think is still the same comparing with 2 years ago when I did the first Q&A, is the crazy premium people put on top grades. On condition rarity. Is actually, I guess we can relate this with the last question actually. I think people still put a crazy premium on top grades. I'm not super bullish on plastic, I have to say it. I'm really bullish on the soccer card market, especially in cards that are fairly rare. I mean, I'm not talking about true rarity, because that alone will be so difficult to find, but cards that are amazing no matter almost the grade, even though there is always some connection there. And the thing that is really different right now, so that was the one that I believe is still similar to like it was 2 years ago. The thing that is really different right now, let me think about. I think the market in general is a bit more smart. I think we are not seeing people going bananas just because. Just think about Mukoko. all that rookie class, Pedri, etc., and they're selling for so much. I think right now the macro perspective is different. I think right now macroeconomics are so different that also plays a huge role. But finalizing my thoughts, the thing that I believe is similar is people paying stupid premiums for plastic. And the thing that I think is a bit different is actually believe the market is a bit smarter, especially when it comes to prospecting.
Yeah, I would say for the things that is the most different besides obviously the prices and this will lead into it, but there's just not a lot of FOMO in the market like there was a couple of years ago. If you go back a couple of years ago, people freaked out about literally any performance, and not just performances. It was like this new low print, low pop card came up in a PSA 10, and everybody freaked out about it and bid super high on it. So there was FOMO around player performances, there was FOMO around all the cards, and now that player performances have come and gone, a lot of the money in the market has come and gone, and a lot of the pop reports are way more fleshed out than they used to be. The sense of FOMO just isn't there anymore like it was, and that goes hand in hand sort of with the way prices have gone over the past couple of years. So that's a lot of what's different, at least in my opinion, is there's not so much FOMO around any single thing that's happening at a given time. But for things that are the same, besides what Andre mentioned, I would say that the players that are at the upper echelon are the exact same players that we've talked about for the past 2 years. It's still Messi, it's still Haaland, and it's still Mbappe. And if you go back, it's still Pele and it's still Maradona. Now, the one guy that has dropped out of the group is Cristiano Ronaldo because Messi won the World Cup. And so now the gap has shifted in Messi's favor. But if you don't include him, we're literally talking about all the same guys that we talked about 2 years ago. And I would expect that to continue.
But even Ronaldo is still very important, you know.
Yeah, of course. Ronaldo is still super important in the market, and he definitely has his place. He's just on a level that's a little different than all those other guys that I just mentioned. But yeah, I imagine that going forward, we will still continue to talk about that group of 5 or 6 guys going forward into the 200th episode.
Will,
actually, I want to add one more thing. We haven't had a new guy come in and break that sort of glass ceiling since Haaland in 2019. And so for that to happen in the next 100 episodes or 100 weeks or whatever this ends up being, I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, to be fair, that's a good point that 2 years ago, Haaland was already a name and Mbappe, of course, and basically the top, I guess you can even say probably the top 10 guys are still the same. If you put, I don't know, Neymar.
We've had prospects. Yeah, we've had prospects have their moments where they're treated like an Mbappe or a Haaland, but it always goes away within a few weeks or a few months. It's super hard to be as sticky as those guys.
Yeah. No, good point.
Will, your mic is muted.
Oh, my bad. I was gonna say I feel like Vinny Jr. is a good example of that, where he had an incredible Champions League performance and he didn't stick afterwards. Like, he's still a great player, like, don't get me wrong. But I think that like with it's hard for me to say just because I wasn't here 2 years ago. I kind of came in around like 1.5 years, but I will say what I've noticed like since I've come in is like I feel like there's a stark difference also on like what parallels are important. Like, I feel like now that we're seeing, you know, more product come out and people are getting more used to sort of like a sort of consistent like new product schedule, even though it gets delayed every once in a while, like the out of 299s, you know, all of those like out of 399s, like they don't, like, you don't see as much craze for them as you did like with like that 2020 class. So, you know, sort of what Andre's saying, like I think people are getting sort of smarter. And then I feel like what's sort of different is like you're sort of seeing more like collectors. I feel like people who like are like, oh, I just like this player, like I like Sergio Ramos or something like that. Like I feel like I think that's really interesting also in terms of difference, where like back when I started joining, it felt like everyone was like, oh, like I like this team for whatever reason, but now that they've been following the team for a year and a half, it's sort of cementing a little bit, and they have these like sort of smaller PCs.
Yeah, I don't think it's like Will how he PCs Messi.
Yes, exactly. Just like how I PC Messi.
God, really nice.
I don't know how that became like such a big meme, but it's very funny. No, oh man,
that was great. But actually, the Vinicius Junior is a good player to to say, because I believe 2 years ago Vinicius Junior was already a name, but I believe he's more relevant right now than it was probably 2 years ago. So that's probably a good player to put on the mix in terms of gaining some momentum. So thank you so much, Gonçalo, for the question. Now we have another one from Nick. I really like your investing in greatness videos for Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi. Is there any latest advice on the best cards to buy when cards like the 7 on Bs are out of your price range? So tricky question. Basically, I guess, let's say 7 on Bs and the mega cracks for Ronaldo are out of the question. What are the best cards to buy for Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi? See, this is a question that is too complex to answer, to be honest with you, Nick, in the sense that it really depends. If you want to explore pre-modern, I like second-year cards for Cristiano Ronaldo quite a lot, since I believe there's a couple of them are still fairly rare. For Messi, it's a bit different, but I still like second-year. That said, I like more first-year cards for Messi with Argentina than I like first-year cards with Cristiano Ronaldo for Portugal, for logic reasons, since the connection with Argentina now is stronger than the connection with Portugal, in my view. So there is a lot of ways you can take this type of question. Then, of course, you can look at modern, you can look at things with manufacturer rarity, but strong rarity at the same time, like Prism 2014. If you can afford, and this is a big if, since I know those cards are crazy expensive, the flawless stuff, the noir stuff. And in a lower tier, but still very desirable cards, probably Chrome 2017 could be another nice option. But really depends. If you care about modern, if you don't care about modern, if you want something that is historical for the player, if not, if you care more about rarity. So, difficult question. I guess I will give you my answer. I really like Prism and Chrome 2017, so probably I would go for that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, I would say my initial thought would be you should be trying to trade up or work your way up to eventually getting 71 Biz or Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks, because at least in my personal opinion, those two cards are so far above everything else in their market that I think it's worth trying to consolidate into something like that. But if that's just not on the cards right now for a variety of different reasons, you have a lot of other options. So I would stick to the super obvious iconic stuff if you're looking at it more from a like investment perspective. If you're just collecting, just pick the cards that you think look the nicest and that sort of thing. But if you're thinking more of the I'd like these to retain value sort of thing, I would be going for things like significant World Cup entries. So like the 2006 World Cup cards in lower grades are pretty cheap right now. Mega Cracks inserts are pretty cheap right now. Different years in their early careers can be pretty cheap. If you even want to do like 2006 World Cup stickers, I know there's a lot of them, but you can buy them raw in pretty good condition, probably for really cheap right now. So the super obvious stuff like that would be where I would look if I was looking for something that might retain its value. But like I said, if you're just looking to collect, there's a lot of examples where they just have really cool cards that don't cost a lot of money. Like, for example, the Ronaldo Stadium Club card where he's doing the celebration. You can find that in certain parallels that probably aren't too expensive that look really nice. And similar for Messi, he has a lot of really nice looking cards too.
Yeah, just one thing before you go, Will. So basically, I was using the example of Flawless, and he said he's pricing out of 7 on B, so it makes no sense to give the example of Flawless, since you are probably also priced out of that. But I really like the idea of that James said there. I'm a big believer on mega cracks inserts in general, especially the top grades. So that would be a nice, affordable option, especially if you are good at grading, trying to pick the best.
Especially if you have any sort of connection to the European market and can get them raw for pretty cheap. They're still cheap cards if you can find them to source.
No, yeah, that's a great example. Will, what about you?
I think I'll go with a little different take of it, just because like I'm also trying to raise up to a 71 biz, but I think it's also a question of how involved you want to be in the market. Because sometimes when I look at sort of my collection and stuff like that, and see what I've spent on, even if I don't disclude like the Thierry Henry rookies and all of that, like I could have gotten like I could have gotten like definitely like at least like a PSA 4 or 5 Messi 71 biz a long time ago if I just like didn't spend on other cards, you know? And so I think it's easier to save up for it. Granted, that is the most like uninvolved and like boring route you can go with. So like, you know, as James said, like, you know, if you want to trade up and slowly like start building a fund for a 71 biz as that being like an overarching goal, and like get Messi cards along the way and then sell them for a little bit and build it up. I think that's a good way to go about it. But you know, cash is always still king. But in terms of like cheaper options, I think like there are a lot of good ones. Like I was just sort of looking at what I have around my desk, and like I still really love the like foil like 2013 icons, you know, with the Ballon d'Ors and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. Like I think that like, you know, cheap option like for myself again I'm saying people should save their money, and I spent like $100 to get like a 2018 blue Messi Topps Chrome PSA 9 because I was like, oh, like $100, like that's pretty affordable, and I really like the like look of the card. But I could have just saved that for a 71 biz, and I would have been like, you know, 10% of the way to getting a PSA 2, for example. So you know, I'm a hypocrite, but that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, he says that 7 on Bs is out of the price range, but it really depends. You could be talking about a PSA 9 or even a PSA 10. And
Yeah, that's the other thing. 71 bids, or even probably even more so in case of the lower grade Ronaldo mega cracks, you can go as low or as high as you want. Like you can get a 71 bids as low as probably like $1,000 for a two, but you can
You
get
can go
as
lower.
high as
I mean, shout outs to Andre's Discord here. And granted, I couldn't jump on it because I spent on other cards. So again, hypocrite. But dude, someone was selling a 71 biz for like 800 euros, man, PSA 2. And I'm like, damn, that's kind of low key a good price.
Yeah. So they're available in sort of the. I mean, it's kind of silly to say lower end when you're talking about 800 euros, but that is sort of lower end when you take into account what Messi cards can end up costing. So they're available at a lot of different price ranges. It just depends on what condition you want in your collection.
yeah, and even Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal, I've been seen more appearing for entry points that at one point we thought ended up being impossible, like 500
Mhm.
euros, for example. Just one thing about this question, I actually will make an update video for the investing in greatness for Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. There is a couple of cards at the time I end up missing, and again, I think those two players are so important that I want to make another video for them. So thank you so much, Nick.
I'll throw in just quickly like Campios and other Messi rookies. I think are really cool and
Yeah.
important when you consider like the political, you know, thing between Catalonia and Spain.
No, yeah, I mean,
Messi has a lot of rookie options. Ronaldo just doesn't.
Yeah,
even inside the Messi market, you can still target Messi rookies, but they're different ones for sure. So, Andrea said, hi, Andrea. Last week I saw a Pelé Panini Umini Illustri being sold for some money at PWCC. Is it because that album was probably much rarer than the Calciatore? The artwork was also very nice. So, I actually can answer this one. I know the card is talking about Panini Umini Illustri. This is an Italian set. Basically, I believe in that the translation will be illustri person, something like that. And this is a set that have a bunch of pop culture important figures at the time, like I believe Einstein, Charlie Chaplin, etc. And there is a couple of relevant players, not just soccer. For example, there is, I believe, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. So I believe is a bit more rare than the normal Calciator stuff, to be honest with you. If I'm talking from the top of my head, I believe was a PSA 8 that sold on PWCC. So in terms of rarity, yes, I think it's a bit more rare than a normal Panini sticker. I think the eye appealing is quite nice for that one. I don't think it's a super important one, to be honest, but it's a nice collectible. So this is a very fine line that... yeah, it's unique, maybe not super important at the same time, but you just need two guys pushing for the stick, and I thought that ended up happening. So I guess this one we can skip since it is a very, very particular question. But thank you so much, Andrea. Now I have a couple more. Just give me a second, my friends, because I also get questions via DMs. This is a big one. Okay, let's go. I'm a friend. I hope you are doing well. I have two questions that I'm hoping you can help provide some insight. Question number one. What are your thoughts on PWCC effectiveness as a place to buy and sell over the short term? Okay. In other words, do you think events leading up to Fnatic's purchase will have a significant short-term impact on PWCC effectiveness as a marketplace? My thinking is that PWCC may not be as good of a place to buy and sell for the next few months because, number one, the rumors of financial trouble likely resulted in many people withdrawing their items from the vaults as well as any available funds from their accounts. Fair. Number two, one thing that made PWCC a good marketplace was the amount of funds that stayed within the ecosystem as users took out cash advances / loans against cards in their vault and used those funds to buy items through PWCC. Another amazing point. So this guy is actually already answered. He's actually sharing amazing perspective, but I agree with him. With the forced liquidation of items belonging to some of these users, there is now less money within the PWCC ecosystem. Also, users who had their cards liquidated to meet loan obligations may leave PWCC for other marketplaces. So this question is from Ming C. Ming, thank you so much for the question. It's an amazing one, honestly. I guess if you guys want to start with this one, feel free. I still have to finalize my thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they answered their own question. I think their thinking checks out and their logic checks out the way I would answer this question. I've always talked about this for a while, but the reason I think that PWCC did so well was not specifically because of the loans and all that, but there was a lot of money and cards tied in that ecosystem. So when the money gets pulled out of that ecosystem or cards get pulled out of that ecosystem, there's less cards and money to go around. So from that perspective, if it is true that people have been withdrawing cards and money at a rate that is unusual compared to the past, then it would make sense that now is probably not the best time to be participating on there in terms of selling, because there's less money and there's less cards in the ecosystem. Now, as a buyer, that sounds like a good buying opportunity to me if that's something you're interested in doing. But as a seller, I would be moving to a place like either eBay, where you can get the most eyes, or Golden, because that's basically just going to be the new PWCC in terms of people's money and cards are tied up at Golden, especially if they sub to PSA. It just goes straight there, and the money is now tied in their Golden / PSA account. So I would just treat Golden as the new PWCC, and I personally am moving off of the PWCC platform in terms of selling, but I would be interested in it from a buyer's perspective for all the reasons that this guy brought up.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't really sold too much or anything really on PWCC, but I think, yeah, for selling it doesn't seem like it's going to do well for the reasons that you stated and that that he stated as well. But for buying, my eyes kind of lit up, where I think that, like, just because there's so many new marketplaces now, and like it's just like if you're willing to put in the work, you're gonna get some deals there. You're gonna get 80% on something, and I think that's, or even like 70%. Something's just run down, just people miss, right? And so I think this is like sort of thing where if you can like schedule like, okay, like every Saturday I go through and just see if there's anything worth it. Now that PWCC doesn't even require you to like bid, put in a bid so that you can join extended bidding, I think there's a lot of buying opportunity at PWCC, just because I feel like there might be a little bit of mass panic, considering that Fanatics like is here to stay, and so PWCC therefore is also here to stay. So I think that just the increased negative sentiment of it and the money leaving PWCC, like I have nothing in my vault anymore. I withdrew it a while ago before the news, but withdrew it nonetheless. I think that like people will easily forget PWCC because the hobby has a memory of a goldfish.
Yeah, and I would say though that in the mid to long term, I'm very confident that PWCC or whatever PWCC ends up being called under Fanatics will be a very good marketplace to sell on, just because they have the brand and they're going to put marketing into it and they're going to put a lot of spend into it. But for this weird short term where that's going to sort of be in limbo as to what PWCC is going to end up being, I would be looking elsewhere to sell.
I will agree in general with almost everything you guys said. I think, look, I had good success selling on BWCC and bad more recently, to be honest. So that could be part of the reason. Maybe there is less money on the ecosystem. And again, this was a great question. And I agree with most points Ming end up saying. But I also agree with James when he says that long run PLCC would be fine, especially with Fanatics right now. I think we'll have another strong ecosystem there eventually, but short term, mid term, Ming, I totally agree with you. I think could be a bit dangerous to sell. Try the fixed marketplace, best offer, something like that. But for weekly auctions could be a bit tricky. In the other hand, when we say this, there is always opportunity, of course, and I think we'll also end up touching on that maybe that there will be amazing buys right there. So I sold a couple of stuff there that I thought the guys that got those cars did an amazing deal. So it is what it is. Now, the second question, also from Ming, he said this. In your recent Q&A and weekly audio, you provide your lasted thoughts regarding Messi rookie cards / stickers. Okay. However, I did not hear any of your thoughts on his Mundi Chromo Top Liga rookies, mate and foil version. Can you please share your thoughts on these two forgotten rookies? Although these cards are the least attractive design-wise of his rookies, I like the narrative of the foil version being Messi first refractor and short printed card. What are your thoughts on this narrative? Thank you as always for all you do for the community. Warm regards, Ming. Thank you so much, Ming. So, great question. I guess I can start with this one. I like the Mundi Chrome Top Liga. I like the foil and non-foil. I agree with you. I like the foil a bit more. In terms of rarity, honestly, they seem very, very similar. But yeah, you are correct. It's kind of like the first foil, the first refractor, even though I guess that can mean a lot or nothing. It really depends how the market will weight this type of narratives. But I like them. I think they are quite more difficult to find than, for example, the normal version, the white card. But even if I think in terms of fundamentals, design is the worst one, the reality is everyone I talk about this card, they don't like the design, and that also plays a huge role. So long term, I like all Messi rookies. The Mundi Chrome Top Liga is one of the ones I like the most. If I had to rank, I would say probably 3 or 4.
Yeah, like you said, the problem with those is the design. It just happened to end up having 4 players on it, so that's always going to hold it back because there's other players on it that people don't want. But from the perspective of its rarity and its difficulty to grade, it's probably the easiest Messi that you can get into in like a top 10%. So like to be in the top 10% of 71 biz holders, you're going to have to spend a ton of money. To be in the top 10% of Este sticker holders, you're going to have to spend a ton of money. To be in the top 10% of the Mundi Chromo Top Liga holders, it's not that much money to buy like a PSA 8 or even a PSA 9. I don't think they're that expensive, and there's not very many of them. So from a rarity standpoint, it's really good.
It's just one thing. And in terms of condition rarity, this card is crazy difficult to...
Yeah, there's like 110 for both, right?
I'm not even sure if there is 110. There is 110, really. I thought...
On one of them. I forget if it's the foil or the base, but there's 110.
Okay, but yeah, look at that. Crazy condition. Yeah, but now that we're talking about, I believe you're correct. I believe there is 110. And I actually believe it's the foil. But again...
Yeah, I think it's the foil. I don't think it's come to market, and it might actually never come to market. But yeah, from that perspective, I do really like it. In terms of it having the narrative of being Messi's first foil, I don't know if that's ever really going to be a thing, just because it's held back so much by the fact that
Yeah.
it's 4 players on one card. And if I was going to pick Messi's first foil, I would actually rather have the 2005 foil where it's just him on the card. I think that one looks super nice, even though it's not a rookie. But um, yeah, I from a supply versus demand standpoint, it looks really good to be looking at those top Liga cards, but the design is just always going to hold it back.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's niche. Though personally, I have a soft spot for it. I think it is really cool. Again, I would say it's like similar to Andre, 3 or 4 in terms of my favorite rookies. But yeah, and I think it's also the refractor because funny enough, I think the paper one is less graded than the foil just because less people want, more people want the foil. And I've even seen PSA sometimes put Messi in the back, which I don't know how you mess that up in slabbing, but um I think it's like it's hard to say because like I think you can't really, and I think James, you've said this sort of in the past about just sort of the hobby in general, where you know if the hobby continues to grow, like our opinions on that won't be the deciding factor. It will be the new people coming in, right? And so it is really hard to say. I think that like that being said, like there's a lot of other cars that I would say are worse buys than that. And I think it's like it's sound logic. It's just whether or not as the market grows, people will start to appreciate it. And maybe people will start appreciating it because other rookies become, unattainable for people, right? And so there's just so many ways it can go about it. But I think if you like the card, then like own it. It's just a very niche thing and something that doesn't, transact as easily as say like even the Campeones and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Or
and
Indie Chromo.
another kind of tricky point here going into the future, if we sort of play this thing out, there, at least in my opinion, there'll probably be people that want to put together full sets of Messi rookies and have every single Messi rookie. In order to get these, it might not be that easy to acquire them, especially in the higher grades, because there's in general there's just not going to be very many of them. So if you have a number of people that are trying to complete Messi full rookie sets, and there's not very many of these cards, that could get kind of sneaky.
Yeah, and I
Because
would
there's still
say,
raw available as well. Like
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know what
more afraid of the
condition.
top grades, but yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say just another thing, and I guess this could be a hot take. Actually, is one of my favorite cards for Messi to buy right now, especially first year, in this case, rookie year, second year. I think is actually one of the best buys, especially because I still see them raw, quite affordable, and looking at them is always relative, but they have a chance to grade well, so maybe there is opportunity there. But yeah, great question. So the next question is from Thomas, and actually closes the question, but was something like this: with a lot of fakes appearing, fake stickers appearing on the market recently. Do we think the narrative of the first card can actually gain momentum versus? I guess I could use an example. Zidane have a foot sticker that is the true rookie, but also have a card that is second year. So, and I'm making assumption this was his point. Do you believe, for example, that Zidane card can gain momentum comparing with the sticker? The sticker for Zidane probably not the best example since I don't see a lot of fakes for that one. But let's say there was a lot of fakes for Zidane foot. Do you guys think the card would gain some momentum?
I mean, my take on this has always been it doesn't matter if there's fakes or not. It just makes the real ones as valuable as the real ones should be. I mean, there's fakes in everything. There's fake shoes. There's fake Michael Jordan rookies. There's fake anything that's worth faking gets faked. So it's just a matter of if the grading companies are going to be able to catch it going forward, which I assume with technology they'll get better at doing, and eventually it'll all get fixed. And once that happens, I don't see a scenario in which the card is ever narratively or iconically or more important than the sticker itself. So I would just stick to that being the narrative that I would go with. Maybe in the short term something happens where people completely get turned off of stickers and or new people come to the market and they push the fact that, hey, we should only be looking at rookie cards and rookie cards should be the most significant thing. Similar to what we saw in 2020 when a lot of new people, especially Americans, came into the market. A lot of them didn't want stickers. They would consider the first card to be the true rookie. It had to be a card. So maybe there's a scenario where the majority of the new people entering the market in the future want cards over stickers. I don't see that being the case, but it's possible. And in that case, then the card would increase. But me personally, I've always been a fan of just waiting out the technology and the sticker will eventually fix itself.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of the stickers, honestly, and I think especially it has that historical significance when you think of, vintage and pre-modern, and I think that I don't see changing. I think that where it might change, and we're already seeing it, to be fair, is like with the modern era. Like I'll use Bukayo Saka as an example. No one cares about his, like, what is it, the tabloid 2018 sticker that's mass produced, and it's just
there's just too many in good condition now.
Yeah, and it's a supply issue, and so then I think that's why people are paying like $1,000 for his PSA 10 Pitch Kings, right? Which personally I don't even like the look of, but but it is his key rookie, right? And so I think that's sort of where it is. You see that sort of with like like Mbappe is another example. People are gravitating towards 2017 Topps Chrome over his sticker. And so I think, with that, Mbappe probably is the best example. I think there people will gravitate towards the cards, but I don't see that happening for like an Henry or a Zidane or a Ronaldinho, just because part of it is just sourcing out stickers, and that is the hunt for a lot of like pre-modern and vintage collectors, and that's just really fun, honestly.
And the other problem is you can't just replace the history. Like with the Zidane, for example, you can't just suddenly say that the card is now the first Zidane thing that was released. You can't ignore it. Whereas with the more of the modern stuff, Erling Haaland has 100 different 2019 rookie cards, so you can associate Haaland's rookie with a bunch of different things. You can't do that with a guy like Zidane or Ronaldinho.
Yeah. And also, like, I think also, like, it's when we're thinking of like, this is all about narratives, right? And it's like, we're not going to see people like doing like big people. Like I'm thinking like Sports Card Investor, like doing narratives on like, I just bought the first Zidane card, like we're not going to see that. Ironically, at Dallas, I guess in some sort of trade I was watching, he picked up a PSA 10 Mbappe sticker, which I find very interesting. Yeah, you saw that as well. So I think like it's also like what narrative is going to be pushed out, and it's like, again, like no one's going to be buying like the first Henry card or something like that. It's going to be collectors like me buying the first Henry sticker versus like someone like Jeff Wilson will be buying, I don't know, a Haaland sticker, an Mbappe sticker, or whatever ridiculous sticker comes out next. Maybe it's Kavitsa, right?
Yeah. So this one. Actually, I have mixed feelings on this one because I don't think it's totally crazy to assume that the first card can gain some momentum if there is a lot of fakes for the sticker. The reason I'm saying this, and that's why I have mixed feelings, is look at the Cristiano Ronaldo sticker versus the card. I think the separation and the happening, the cards always have been the most important rookie for Ronaldo, but was closer, and I don't think it's that close right now. The same thing ended up happening with the Este sticker. I thought the Este sticker in terms of fundamentals was one of the best rookies for Messi. And the 7-on-Bs now is in a completely different level. And I thought, and I could be very wrong on this, but I thought if there wasn't all of these fakes with the Este would be competing much closer to the Mega Crack. So difficult question, honestly. It really depends how bad the situation is. Let's say, I believe there is around 100 graded foot Zidanes at PSA. If all of a sudden back at SEC or even PSA puts 50 or even 100 copies figures on the market, things can get really, really tricky. So, difficult question, honestly. I think what you guys said makes sense. But I actually think there is a small possibility where the card, if that card is difficult to fake, can gain some momentum. I don't think that's totally out of the equation.
Well, I think just to add, I think if there are options for cards in the same year, then that in itself I think makes a lot of sense. But we see that already with like the Messi, people like, Messi 71 Biz, the Moonochrome and stuff like that, even though the essays holding, has sort of stabilized already, or same with Ronaldo, like people like the mega cracks over the sticker, right? And so I think like that's something to consider where if it's in the same year, then I could see it. If it's not, then it's a little bit tougher. I think also where it might be interesting, just to add a little bit more nuance, is also with like newer kids, right? So like think, right, of like Endrick, like people might just prefer the sticker as his earliest thing compared to the Futera, right? And so I don't know about that. If Endrick becomes the wonder kid that news media people are saying that he will be, right?
But Will, the problem with that is all of this,
Supply.
and all of these guys will have a top Chrome card, a Sapphire card, the Prism card.
Yeah, exactly.
And that automatic will become the thing for
yeah,
them.
even if it's like 5 years, 4 years out, I agree with you there.
Especially
more
because they would still put the rookie logo on that stuff. And
yeah, I actually got DM'd a question for this, and it was directly that question. It was, hey, if I'm interested in Endrick, should I be buying his rookie sticker or his non-licensed stuff, or what should I be doing right now? And I would say avoid those, and unless you think Endrick is literally going to pop within the next year where he doesn't have product, then maybe those are a play. But if you're super speculating on Endrick and it's like, I think in 10 years he's going to be like where Mbappe is now, then you want to wait until Topps Chrome and Prism and all those more premium products come out, because those are gonna completely replace all the stuff that's out now.
Yeah, I mean we saw it with Doosan too. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, this question, to be fair, was more related with modern, vintage.
Yeah, of course.
Because in modern, realistic, you have to go for the top product, the Prism, the Chrome.
Topps Chrome Sapphire, low numbered.
or Prism if there is something.
Yeah, Prism, low numbered.
RC logo only as well, because no one's doing the research.
Yeah. Basically, low numbered cards. And
low numbered cards that you can push narratives on, and then that might be unique in some way. Yeah, and the ultra modern market's crazy.
The ultra modern market is really, really crazy. But by the way, I saw someone paid, I believe, 400. Maybe I'm wrong on this one.
Oh yeah, for the Endrick PSA 10s that have started coming out.
Yeah,
it blows my mind, because if you look for them, I'm pretty sure it comes from an uncut sheet. So there's no way to get that card like not in an uncut sheet. So these are essentially hand cut PSA 10s. So that's kind of scary.
That's wild.
That's the I'm not sure if it was 400, 500. It's a bit irrelevant, but
it was a few $100s though. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a lot of money, and that's the type of stuff that maybe I'm wrong, but I think people will regret in a couple of years. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the next question. Okay, now those are from Instagram. We already end up answering all of the Patreon ones. So this is from Ampush Gravel, and he said, could we see a rise in price in refractors and silver prism of superstars in the coming years? Okay, modern question. So basically refractors and silver prism for superstars, let's say silver.
So something interesting about 2014 Prism in particular, if you look at the pops of silvers in PSA 10, there's really not a lot of them, because one, that set's really hard to grade. Two, silvers are rare. Like in 2014 Prism, it's hard to get those. It's not like now where every single pack has a silver Prism. It's like one a box or something like that. So Messi PSA 10 silver Prism, I think there's only like 40 or 50 in PSA 10. So once you start taking that into account, I think it makes sense that over time, stuff like that might be valuable. For Topps Chrome 2017, I think less so, because there's more refractors. But at least for 2014 Prism, if you look at the pop reports, those are pretty tough.
Okay. Yeah, I think it also depends on like if the how big the market gets, right? It's just really a demand question where, can the soccer market get big enough where, the numbered stuff become unattainable as well, right? And then also like do you, I don't know, like for example, like would you rather have a PSA 9 like red or blue Messi Prism, or like a PSA 10 silver, right? And it's like that's sort of really tough to answer. I feel like Red's a better example just because people really love the blue color match, even though it's higher numbered by like 100. But it's like, that's you're talking both about like people starting to collect refractors and silvers, which we're not seeing now just because there are so many like silvers one are just very like abundant with the new sets, and also because with the money that you'd spend on PSA 10 silver, for example, you could get a numbered Messi, right? And
people
so
also really, I think there's a big premium right now on numbered cards in general. People are just scared of populations growing in general, and so having that known population, at least in our current market, is just a huge deal.
Yeah,
I will say sorry, Will, on this one I agree with you guys, and I'm not really. Thank God this is an Instagram question, because on Patreon I would feel forced to answer because this is not a question for me, but I think you guys are probably correct.
Yeah, I will say like the variations, the 2017, 2018 like variations for Messi or Ronaldo or Neymar, like they're cool. Like I don't see them like stonking or anything, but I see them holding value just because they're lower printed, and the image of it are a lot cooler and more unique from like an
it's just
artistic
a more
sense.
rare version of the normal refractor. Yeah.
No, okay. So the next question, but great job on this one, guys. So the next question is, this is a really good question for both of you. And another question that, thank God, is from Instagram. Do you think it's worth buying Pulisic right now? This is a difficult question.
It depends on what you're buying and what your plan is. If you're buying Pulisic to sell like in the next short term, I don't really like it. If you're buying Pulisic with the hopes that something happens towards a build up to 2025 and 2026, I like it a little bit more, but he has so many cards now that you got to be targeting the right stuff. And even if you're going to be buying a United States men's national team guy for 2026, I don't think he's the one you want to be buying. I think there's better options.
I agree.
Yeah, I would say like it's so interesting. So I think that so many people have spent so much money on Pulisic that they will have to be Pulisic collectors, right? Like, but is it gonna be like, are they gonna be like I don't think, like as you said, James, that he's gonna be like him. He's not gonna be the US kid.
I think he will be potentially the most popular player going into 2026 from a mainstream standpoint. I do not think he will be the best player.
Yeah, no, exactly. And he might not be, but I think that's the interesting thing is like when we're thinking about market growth, fans from, World Cup 2026, it's like it's whoever kid stands out there. And if the US makes a good run, it's whoever carries the US, for that run will be sort of the new poster child. And it could be possibly like, and I think someone said this in one of their videos, I think it was you, James, where like Pulisic was sort of like the guy who opened the gate for all the other Americans to come through, right? But I don't know if he's going to be the top performer for 2026. So it could be possible. Like I would say lowest I could see Pulisic is like him sort of in the like Donovan Dempsey sort of camp, where you have actually like really dedicated collectors, especially for Dempsey. I mean, I know like Brian is a Dempsey collector, but that's also because like Dempsey doesn't get as much value, from it. So I think it's just depending on what your play is, what sort of margins you want, what sort of risks you want to take. Like if you want to buy Pulisic now and are like, I think I can make 20% come 2025, I think that's possible. Like I would be like, okay, yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
I would also, I would not touch Pulisic if you do not have a personal attachment to the United States men's national team, because I think there's scenarios where things do not turn out well for him and they do not go out as planned. So and I talked about this with Andre during our podcast. The gap between player performance and what they're valued at in the market for United States men's national team players is the greatest that we have in our market. So if something bad were to happen to any of these guys' careers, their card values could be very, very bad.
Yeah, it's the scary part for sure.
Yeah.
Again, I'm no hater of Pulisic. I understand why people love him. I mean, if I was American, probably would be my favorite player. So it makes sense, actually. So the next question is, okay, this is an interesting one also. Do you think this could be the worst time to be buying Messi? Probably because of the World Cup hype. What do you guys think?
No, because the worst time was February of 2021. Like, I mean, we can just look at the graphs. It's down like what 80% since then. And depending on if you bought like high grade Messi, like obvious stuff, like if you bought a PSA 10 of the World Cup 2006 card, if you bought a PSA 9 or a PSA 10 of the Catalan or Campios, like those are down like 70-80%. So no, it's not the worst time. Is it the best time? No, because the best time was being in 2019 before this was even valuable. But I would say it is the best time, at least as of today, since 2019 to be buying this because it's now the lowest it's been since 2020 or whatever it is. So it just depends on where you think the market has grown and where it's going to go in the future. But now is a much better time than any time over the past 4 years to be buying.
I think the idea of this question is, yeah, the worst time, of course, is not because we know there was a worst time, but probably in the last, let's say, 12 months could be this the worst time. I guess could be more around.
I mean,
Even then,
yeah.
I don't think it's the worst time because right after the World Cup, he got a temporary bump, not like a little bit in terms of prices. Maybe key stuff went up like 10-20%, but really in terms of volume, a lot of stuff sold. But it's pretty much waned back to where it was 6 to 12 months ago. Prices are pretty much stagnant. So I don't think it's a terrible time to be buying.
I'll just be honest. I've been buying Messi for my PC and stuff like that.
Oh, you
and
have to.
I have to, right? You know, right? Like $28. This is gonna be like 2K someday, right? I'm joking. But I think like, really, I think if it can't be the worst time, because if it is the worst time for Messi, it is the worst time for the soccer hobby, right? And that means that like we are not gonna get any better than this. We have peaked and we are on our way out, right? And I
if
think
Messi's
like,
not valuable, nothing is valuable.
exactly. Yeah. And so I just don't believe that. I think like also now like is an interesting time for to buy Messi because he's just like not talked about, like I think that his spike was before the World Cup, right after winning the World Cup. But even his like World Cup cards, which were like when you factor in the new product type and him winning it, like they're down. Like I've been able to pick up some like I don't know, I got like a red breakaway like out of 99 Messi from the 2022 World Cup, for like half of it what it was going for, and I'm not saying that's the thing to pick up. I just wanted, one for the memories. But like I think it now is a really good time, and like heading into the summer, it's usually like a lull outside of the national, which is like weird where the national is like where the soccer is probably the most dead because not a lot of Americans follow the transfer market or anything like that. And then also like if he doesn't like he might have a bump if he goes to the MLS, if he goes back to Barca, but then like he could dip if he goes to Saudi Arabia, right? So like it's like sure, but like I think he's probably going to go back to Barca, and we might see a little bit of hype, and then the retirement. So when you're thinking like even like in the next year or two, what sort of Messi's trajectory is, there I see a lot more places for potential spikes, like, and if you're familiar with the price points and stuff like that, like I think that you can, even short term make some sort of ROI on it.
Yeah, I think this touches on another part of this question, which would be what is your goal with buying Messi? Are you like trying to flip him based on short-term spikes, or are you thinking more, should I jump in now to hold for 20 plus years? And if it's the latter and you're just trying to figure out where to jump in for the next 20 plus years, could Messi drop another 10-20% in value over the next 6 months? Could he drop another 30% in value over the next 6 months? Sure. But if you're really believing in this market in the long run, that 30%, 10%, whatever the drop ends up being over the next 6 months, I don't really think you're going to beat yourself up over that over the next like 20 years if you want to hold.
Yeah. And for short term, I'll just say like red Messi's, for some reason, they don't sell well, and so a lot of comps are really cheap. If you can find one without a comp, there's a lot of opportunity there. Like this is one example. So I'm not saying I've done this a million times, but I got a 2016 red Messi PSA 10. It had no comp. went for less than the blue, because it's not a color match, even though it's a lower number. And then, eventually there will be a comp. And it was a favorable comp where I was like, oh, that's 2x. I'll take that. So I could buy more Messis or other stuff like food and all of that.
No, I don't think it's the worst time either. But it depends. What cards are you buying and what cards are you not? But if the idea is early Messi, key sets, especially low numbered stuff, I think it's still a great time to be buying. Since I believe in the long run of the Messi market.
Yeah, especially some key stuff that doesn't come up often. Like, I don't know what type of the market they're playing in, but red Messi Chrome from 2017, gold Messi Chrome from 2017, PSA 10s of his colored stuff from 2014. Like, that sort of stuff doesn't come up every day. So when it does come up, you kind of are just at the whims of the market at that point with how much you're going to pay.
Yeah, and I will say even... Oh, do you want to go first, Andre? Okay. No, I will say even like just like early modern stuff too, like some of the first few selects and stuff like that. Like there are ROI percentages, and and just like I'll just preface this: when I say ROI, like I'm very happy taking 20%. Like that's a win for me. So like I'm not trying to like 2-3x, or anything like that. But like there is stuff there too where it's just early Messi, the dark blue Argentina kit's kind of fire, stuff like that. If you're just in the market a lot, you kind of you'll kind of develop an eye of it.
Yeah, again, the thing about Select, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Will, since it's not a market that I operate that much. But yeah, I agree with almost everything you guys said there. Yeah, not a lot I can add, but I don't think it's the worst time. So the next question is, how important / relevant will Haaland Dortmund cards be in the future? This is an interesting question, actually. James, you want to start with this one?
In my opinion, they should not be as important as Salzburg, but they should be more important than anything that comes after it.
Yeah.
And that would be the very simple answer.
My answer is I'm mad about it, but I think that like I remember having this debate in an early podcast with Brian and John and and Chris. Like they were like, would you rather take like a Salzburg gold, on his Salzburg kit from Finest, or like an on-card auto with like, or not an on-card auto, but like a sticker auto patch of Haaland in his like Dortmund kit? And I was the only one that said the Salzburg kit, and I got made fun of for it. And I just think that I think that with how the Mania happened and when people discovered Haaland, he was in his Dortmund kit, and I think that narrative won't change, unfortunately. And I hate it, but I just don't think that it will change. I think people will value his Dortmund kit value his Dortmund kit as much as his Salzburg kit.
Okay. Actually, one thing before I actually share my perspective on this one. On the last Messi question, one thing that you guys end up touching that I also want to add something is the thing with Messi is we still have some potential catalysts for him in the future that I believe can play a really nice role. And I'm talking short term. The next Ballon d'Or could be a strong possibility for him. Him going to Barcelona, like I'm not sure if it was Will or James said, I believe it was Will. That alone can, of course, bring some hype to his market. But and there is also some records that is very close to break. But also a Ronaldo stuff can happen, and he goes to Saudi, and yeah, maybe there will be some pain in his market. But in general, just going back to the last question, I don't think is the last time by any means. The thing with what you said, Will, about Haaland and Salzburg, honestly, that's for me not super close. I think the Salzburg gold, especially because the patch auto is the museum, right?
Yeah, it's museum.
And it's a sticker auto, and the patch is not from anything.
Yep.
Honestly,
eventually, I think that has to play out as being something that people talk about. Eventually, I think we have to get around the idea that these are sticker autos and the patches are from nothing. I don't know if it'll ever take place, but that has to eventually mean something, in my opinion.
I don't like it. Okay, I was the lone Salzburg Finest stan, but right now I think that's it. That's how it is, and also I think for that narrative to change, the people holding the Dortmund Holland Grail cards would need to agree with that too. And I just don't think that, like, there needs to be like, I don't know, like a Shyway Vlogs type of person to come out and be like, I'm only collecting like Holland Salzburg, to
Or
kind of
just
like
new
pave the way.
collectors coming to the market that prefer the
Yeah,
Salzburg stuff. And
exactly. Yeah.
I at least believe that the more people come into the market, the more we'll recognize that, hey, why is the Salzburg stuff cheaper when he played for Salzburg first?
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that.
Honestly, when you said the gold finest, that's such an amazing and clean card. The museum, honestly, I don't care. I don't like it.
I know that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's not even on card. If it was on card, it would be different.
I mean, it's a good card. No, don't get me wrong. It's still a nice card at the end of the day. But man, the especially the finest gold, that's an epic card for a land. That's one of the best cards for a land in my mind.
Hey, a quick trick on the finest set for Salzburg Holland. If you look at the PSA 10s of the colors, doesn't matter which color, they're all less than 10.
Oh, that's interesting. I will really say another interesting thing is if people start holding finest. If Holland finest Salzburg kit becomes much more scarce in the, on eBay, on PWCC, on Golden, then there is a shot that narrative could change, because then you're only seeing Dortmund cards transact and people begin to question that as well.
I actually think that narrative will change. I think maybe I'm really wrong on this one, but I think people are realizing that the finest Salzburg cards for our land, the color stuff, are the cards to go for him, honestly, when it comes to rookie material. I know there was
something super interesting as well. If you look back over the past 6 months, the Holland rookie that has performed the best is the sticker. It's not the cards.
Wild.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. I just don't have faith in the hobby, but I don't have like a good reason for it. It's just a hunch. That's my like real talk. That's what I think.
One thing that I learned in collectibles is that if you think something and if there is good fundamentals behind, there is a likely scenario other people will think the same. And look, I don't collect Haaland. I have the stickers. I bought them quite cheap years ago. But let's forget that. If I had to buy a big card for Haaland, I'm not even thinking about the Dortmund cards. I would try first the finest, maybe even the Topps Now card that is very short printed with Salzburg. I also like that. Yeah. And even the insert on finance.
The red, isn't there a red prize footballer ending soon?
There's one on Golden, yeah, the one that's out of 5.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I like those cards a lot. The sticker is a bit more difficult because there is a lot of them, but even that I like to be fair.
If the versions of the sticker end up ever mattering, then I would like the sticker. Like if PSA ever went around and labeled first version, I think that would really matter, because I think the first version is actually pretty short print.
Yeah. I also think the Topps Now is interesting. I forgot about that one existing. But the Topps one, that was before, people are buying, like the print run was too crazy, right?
Yeah, there's only like 300 of them.
That's really cool, man. That's really, really cool.
No, yeah, for sure. But yes, for me, Salzburg cards for Ireland are the way to go. The next question is an interesting one. Do you think in Europe we will ever have boxes for sale also in supermarkets like happens in US? For me, that would be the move to bring sports cards hobby in EU to the level of Pokemon. So I guess I can answer this one. I think so. I think we are already seeing more product appearing in Europe. I think Fanatics probably will push this type of logic to a Pokemon level. I'm not sure, my friend, but I agree that probably we'll see more product appearing on supermarkets is an example, but big stores around Europe. So
yeah, I would say it's inevitable. I mean, they already do like match attacks and stuff like that in general stores. So I don't think it's a far leap at all for Fanatics to say, hey, let's put hobby product in there. Now, you're not going to get the super high-end stuff. You're not going to get like Topps Dynasty or something like that in your local store, but you might get like the paper top set or Merlin or something like that.
I think Merlin would be really good. And also, like, you see some UK exclusive stuff as well. Like Panini Score never really hit the US, right? And
No,
it ended up becoming a
Panini Score was not only UK, it was Europe in general. So
yeah. It was Europe, but and that ended up being
there's also, I don't know if you guys know
for
this, but there was a Score Serie A set that only came out in Italy, didn't come
Yep.
out anywhere else.
no, makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say also, like, the Panini Score, funny enough, ended up becoming a really important set for a few months because it had the Gakpo rookies and it also has Balogun rookies as well, right? And back when Gakpo was the hotness, and now when Balogun's the hotness, like it's a small set that ended up mattering, even though you wouldn't expect it to. And I also know that
isn't Top Scrum Bundesliga also just for Bundesliga? Or you guys can buy that on US.
No, we can buy that. That's an American product.
Yeah, that's American. Same with Bundesliga Finest. I was gonna say also, I know that, like, in terms of Fanatics, I remember hearing an interview. I forget where. I think it was Luca Tiger LeBron, just because I used to listen to their stuff because I was making their thumbnails. Basically, I think that, like, what Fanatics wants to do is, like, make it more accessible, where it's like, even, like, I don't know, like, you go to like a basketball game or a soccer game or something like that, and you get like a pack of cards, right? And so for it to be accessible in like a game, right, to get it going, I would assume that supermarkets and like big box stores are also part of that. And in terms of like what I've heard from how Michael Rubin operates, it's like he wants like that sort of monopoly, right? And to have a monopoly, you really need to sort of go all in on sort of every sort of direction.
I mean, yeah, they will push Europe, Asia, etc. That I have almost zero doubt, because every time you look at their interviews, they talk about international demand. So I mean, they want to be bigger than US for sure. The next question is a fun one. If Messi goes back to Barcelona, does that help the Gavi and Pedri market? Let's start with Will on this one.
That's interesting. No, I don't think so, unless like Messi says like this kid's like the future. I don't really think so. I think that like they have to sort of stand up on their own 2 feet at this point. They're not that young yet, where like, unless like there is an iconic moment where like it's like Ronaldinho, where he lifts on Messi's first goal, he lifts him up and like piggybacks him. I think that's one of the 2013 icon cards, right?
But Will, by the way, Messi and Pedri already played together. It's not even like the first season for them. So for Gavi, I believe would be the first season, but because you have a Pedri rookie card with Messi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, I don't think it will really move it. And Messi's also not the type of media person that will like kind of say this kid's the truth. Like, I like a good example of that is Ibrahimovic, quoted and being like, in 10 years, like, people won't remember me. They'll only know Isak from, as another Swedish player, right? Alexander Isak and on Newcastle. Like, that's just not Messi's personality either. So I don't see it moving.
The only way I see it affecting it is because that Barcelona team will automatically get more attention on it and there'll be more eyes watching their games. So if they perform well, then perhaps yes, but that'd be an indirect sort of thing. It's not going to be automatic, like, oh, Messi now plays for Barcelona, their cards go up. No, they still have to do things.
I will say the only caveat is if there's like a Messi, like Gavi or Pedri card, like a dual auto, it's probably going to be like a dual sticker auto from like Museum or Inception.
Yeah, but Messi's carrying the price of the card.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just covering all nuances here. But yes, it would be the Messi auto that's carrying that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys again. Let's say if they run deep on Champions League, but that's not just because of Messi, it's because of the team doing well. Of course, Messi can help the team a lot, but I don't think the market for those players will increase just because of that. So the next question is a simple one. Thomas Muller, market long term. That's I guess I can start with this one. I like it a lot. I think there is certain players in the market where history will be very kind to them, and I think Muller is one of them. I think, of course, he's a player that needs our market to grow, since we are so focused on Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, all the players we end up talking to today that are the big names. But I think certain players, when they retire, people appreciate them more, and I think Muller could be a case. People forget this, especially because most people they probably never watched Zidane play. But Zidane, at the end of his career, was not doing that well. Of course, he ended up retiring with an amazing World Cup. But certain players' history is really kind to them. Zidane was one of them, for example. Not comparing Zidane with Thomas Muller. I know Zidane is in a different level. But I think Thomas Muller will be looked at top 5, top 10 German player ever. I really believe that. And if you guys can check, how old is Thomas Muller? Because I don't even think he's that old. I think
he's 33, which is wild. He's turning 34 this year, but I love that fact that he's 33.
So imagine he can play 3 seasons, 4 seasons at top level, in my perspective, and
so he's gonna win what 20 Bundesligas?
But
maybe 21.
Yeah, that's most likely. But even who knows, the Champions League, a Euro Cup, those type of stuff, they can happen for sure to a player like him playing at Bayern Munich, playing at Germany. And his career is already crazy impressive. I mean, if you look at his career, he's a joke. World Cup, 2 Champions League, a bunch of Bundesliga, best young player of the World Cup 2010, not the best player, second best player on 2014. That I thought he should have won, not Messi, to be honest. His career is insane, really.
He also has a position named after him, which is very rare.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's actually second or third player with the most assists ever. In Bundesliga, is the one with the most assists ever. So we are talking a player that there is no way you can ignore him in the future, because when you look at history, his name will appear in a lot of stuff. I also believe he's top 10 top goal scorer at Champions League. Not that I think all of this stuff is crazy relevant. It's just the amount of stuff that he has that makes him very relevant, if you ask me.
He has 60, what is it? Let me just do math quickly. He has 67 more assists than second, which is Ribéry. No, he has 170 assists in Bundesliga. That's ridiculous.
And this record will be put very far because he's not leaving Bayern Munich and he's playing, let's say, at least 3 seasons more.
So I agree with that in terms of how it would come out in the market. I think like there can be some gains. I think the tricky part with Muller is just what is sort of his significant card that you want, or what is a Muller grail is a better way to put it, because like his rookie stuff is still widely accessible. Like you can still find some of it sealed, and it's sort of in that weird pre-modern era. It's the end of the pre-modern era where, you know, he has 3 stickers, so it's not even one like Zidane. So like what is going to be a key card for Muller? Is it going to be 2014 Prism where he wins the World Cup? Like that might be the one, you know. But I think that's really the question, and we haven't really seen a really high-end Muller really sell. Like the only one that comes to mind, and it went for like I think $600, is like that treble, which was the treble where it was out of 25, so that's the gold, and it was both of his jersey numbers. It was 13 and 25. It was 13 out of 25, which is funny enough his jersey number for Germany and his jersey number for Bayern Munich. But I can't really figure out what his key card is.
I believe I saw a couple of months ago a Prism going for 400 or 500, maybe even more, because I was bidding on that card, to be honest, and I was really disappointed to not win. Without having his market in front of me, I really like the 2014 Prism for him, because like you said, he ended up winning. Not that I think this narrative is the best one, but I mean, it's the first Prism, and there is a history behind that tournament for him. I also like the Chrome. I also like the Trouble. I'm not sure if there is some nice flawless for him. I would assume yes, but basically the modern product that is really great. Probably without looking, but I would say I also like the first, not the first, the actually the first numbered Bundesliga Chrome stuff for him because of the history. But yeah, he's a great player.
While he also got the silver ball and the silver boot.
His career is insane.
In 2014. Yeah, I mean, that's insane. I think
insane.
arguably you could argue that Thomas Muller should have gotten the golden ball for 2014 World Cup over Messi.
No, I thought I'm a Messi fan, but I thought he was the best player.
I thought Muller was the best player that tournament, but you know.
Yeah, just for an idea of where his grails sell, his gold Prism 2014 PSA 9 is like around 1,500.
That's really nice, yeah.
Another player that I don't think is the third best player after Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, but I also don't think it's crazy to put him in the consideration. I think Thomas Muller is a really, really special player.
Yeah, I would have to put Modric as third, but that's just personal preference.
And Neymar, Modric, I think all of these guys probably will be ahead of him because of the play style. They have a better connection with fans, but I just, my point is not that he's the third. I just think it's not crazy to put him in the conversation. I think he's more than fair. Okay, I told you guys a lot of questions, but we are actually close.
This is fun. Yeah.
To the end. So the next question: top 3 cards on your collection. I guess this applies to all of us. Okay.
Let me grab them.
I will say no. Feel free if you want to. I will say
I'll go back.
Messi 7-on-Bs. I have a SCC 8.5. I really like that card. I like Chrome. I like my Chrome Orange Messi. And the third one could be a Cristiano Ronaldo sticker, the rookie sticker. I really like that sticker since I ended up opening the set when I was a kid. Those are not the most expensive or something like that, but are the ones I really like.
Yeah, I don't have mine with me because they're sitting in a locked place back there. But if I was not including my United States stuff, then it would be the 2014 Neymar Gold that I have. I have the Ronaldo rookie sticker that's signed. It's a PSA 4 with a PSA 10 auto, the 94 vote ball sticker.
It's a nice one.
Yeah, and then the Xavi that I just picked up, the 2003 Japan one with the patch auto. Those would be my top 3.
I love that. Amazing choices. That Xavi, congrats, is a beauty.
Oh, thank you. That one is impossible to find.
Congrats on that one again. That's amazing. That's such a sick card.
I love Xavi.
Yeah. Oh man, I've been wanting to ask this question. I'll save it for the next Q&A, but I'll ask you for the next Q&A.
It's about Xavi or Iniesta, am I right?
No, it's just whether players with managerial careers hurts their card values.
Oh, okay. But the short answer is I don't think so. I think is long term is irrelevant.
Fair enough. Fair. For me, it would be first this Messi, the 2014.
Love that also.
PSA 9. Yeah. I love this just because, I think it's such a cool sticker.
Yeah,
I think it's one of my favorites.
Those cards are really cool.
Yeah, the FIFA. I got a 4 on it, so that's really nice. And then, of course, like my current grail is the PSA 8 on Thierry Henry. And I still have I like it so much I bought it twice. So
no, that's fantastic.
That's mine for me.
Love that. So let's move on. Question number, I have no idea. How do you start with this hobby? How do you start? Okay, I guess is how we end up entering the market. For me, it's very easy to explain. I was already a collector of other stuff, in this case Magic the Gathering, also other TCGs. And I don't remember very well how I ended up finding cards. I know I was looking on eBay for Magic cards, and I probably saw some Michael Jordan. Then I'd start talking, let's see if I found a Cristiano Ronaldo or a Messi. and was like that. Was not I did not found the market because of a influencer. They end up influencing me to create content, other influencers, that's for sure. But I was already in cards, so.
Yeah, you didn't want to advertise that you were buying Messi rookies for $20 yet.
Yeah.
Man, what a world! What a world!
But yeah, how did you guys start actually?
Is it how did we start, or how do you get started in the hobby? Just to clarify.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't
Okay.
know. But I guess we can actually answer both. But let's say how do you guys started, then we give some tips.
Okay,
How
that
we
sounds
can
good.
start.
I started with Pokemon first, and then I kind of was like, I saw how people, like one, it was already like sort of like a solved market, and that wasn't as interesting. And I've always been a soccer fan since 2010, since I, lived in the UK. And also I saw how people were like geeking over, like, I don't know, like not just Charizard, but like other Pokemon like Gyarados or Alakazam or Gengar or really random Pokemon. And I'm just like, wow, you really like this. And I don't feel that way about Pokemon, And then I thought about what do I feel that way about? And it was soccer cards and about players like Thomas Muller. I started, I really love Thomas Muller as a player and stuff like that. And then that's how I, was like, oh, if they're Pokemon cards, there must be soccer cards. And that's how I got in 2021.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, but I came from baseball when I was a kid, and then played a bunch of FIFA, and then made the crossover when sort of it was getting really popular to do it in 2019 to start getting into the cards, and basketball and football and baseball at that point were all super expensive, and soccer was super cheap, so just moved straight into that.
Yeah. No, that's nice. So if the question, I don't think that was the case, but if the question, how do you start with the hobby? I guess look, take a look at some of my videos, some videos of James. Join the discords. Start slow. Don't think you know a lot, because that's probably not the case. To be honest with you, focus in one player, focus in one set, something that is easy at the start, because the beliefs you have right now, they will be very different in 1 year from now, and we all experience this on this live on this call. So that's the best advice I guess I can give, if the question was how to start in the hobby.
I'll say
No,
no.
go on, Will. Go on.
I'll say for me, it's just to cover something different. It's also figure out how involved you want to be in the hobby and in what way. Like if you want to be like a long-term holder on things, then you want to be able to like, and you should do all of this, but like if you're thinking more long-term, you know, you want to just do more, put more effort in research, figuring out like what are the key sets, what are like that sort of thing. If you want to be sort of like flipper and just move through things and stuff like that, then everything's different. You want to be getting the new stuff and then flipping it, setting up an eBay store, setting up a whatnot thing, or if you like prospecting, then watch matches of Portuguese games or French games and all of that. Like I think it's just how do you want to be involved in the hobby, and how much time you want to put in is really helpful in terms of determining sort of like also what you buy.
Yeah. Again, start slow. Is I really think is probably the best advice everyone can give you at the start, because it's normal to believe that you find the best market ever, and soccer cars are crazy and their value, because when you look at how popular the sport is, how short the supply is, but in reality you understand that okay, but our demand is also not that high, so you have to be careful. Yeah.
I will just say from personal experience, like the first soccer cards I bought were like a Messi rookie, and then two, I think a Finest Holland, a Salzburg kit, PSA 9, and then like a Sapphire, or no, it was a PSA 10, and then a Sapphire PSA 9. And this was when Holland was injured, and I realized I kind of really enjoyed like trading up and stuff like that. So I moved those cards like, at the first show I went to, even though like realistically, like I could have held them up until now. So it's just like, so that's just an example. Like I agree, starting off slow, you don't have to burn the bank with the first move.
So the last question, actually, this is a fun one. Best set ever: Mega Cracks, Panini Select? Question mark. Okay, so
I know that's not the second one.
So the best set ever. This is a difficult question. I also don't think it's Panini Select, to be honest with you, my friend. But I don't know the answer to this one. I know the set I like the most, and they still make Cracks 2004. But I don't know if it's the best set ever. And it will depend. People that have a lot of money, they may consider Flawless the best set ever, or maybe the 2014 Messi icons if they can operate in the really rare stuff. Some people may consider Alifa Bologette. Some people may consider Tingles in vintage. There is so many great sets in our market. I would say this. I would say the ones I really like. I like Mega Cracks 2004. I like Panini World Cup 2006, even though that set is down a lot, but it's still one of my favorite designs. I like Prism 2014 a lot. I like Panini Trouble a lot. I like Topps Chrome a lot, 2017. I don't know. I like Merlin, for example. But do I think that's the best set? No. Honestly, I think the answer a lot of people will give you nowadays, trying to see what the market is saying, will be Topps Chrome 2017 and Prism 2014. I think a lot of people will consider those the best sets.
I think they'll say whichever they hold the most stock in.
Also that, of course.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, if I had to pick based on trying to use fundamentals, it would be 1970 World Cup Panini. It would be 2004 Mega Cracks, or either the Ultra Modern set, or either of the Modern Era sets, which would be 14 Prism or 17 Chrome. Those would be my clear obvious four.
You said 17 Panini, right? The World Cup.
1970 Panini.
97. Yeah, that's a great choice. I also think that's one of the best sets ever. So
That's
even I love the look of final cards in 59. I think they are so nice.
If the Pele was a photo for 59 Heinerle, I think that would be probably the biggest set.
Yeah, I don't think there is a best set, honestly. It's not me not trying to give an answer, but I think even if we try to make this a more fun question, in the sense that, let's say, the best vintage set, the best modern set, the best pre-modern set, even that will be crazy difficult to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
No, go on.
Oh, I think that, like, with the best set, the way I'm sort of interpreting it is like across the board, which set both has fundamentals and has something for everyone to collect, and also like kind of keeps their value. Like I agree, 2004 Mega Cracks is like best, like has one of the best cards in it, right? The Messi 71 Biz. And it has a lot of iconic players too, right? It has Beckham, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, it has so many iconic players. I think when I think about like the generation that like is following soccer and sort of the narratives, and has something for every collector, I think that's 2014 World Cup Prism, because I think it just covers so many different types of collectors but also holds some fundamentals. And I know that this is, we're talking about like an early modern set, and granted, I don't do vintage as much, so like I'm not very well expertise in it, so I'm not snubbing the vintage community or anything. But I think like when you think of it, it's like you have the matchups, the Messi Ronaldo matchups, you have other matchups which are crazy, like Robin, Iniesta, you have so many iconic players there: Muller, Ozil, Robin, Ribéry, Neuer, Buffon, and I think like it covers such a wide range of like different types of collectors. And then also you can collect different things at different price ranges too, right? If you're very high end, you're going for the goals, the one of ones, like the Eto'o that just sold. Eto'o, another great player. Or, maybe you're going for like the small inserts, like the future, like the goal scorers or the net finders and stuff like that. I think that like there are a lot of memorable players in the 2014 World Cup set that people will have fond memories of, or PC a player. And I think that's how I interpreted the question.
Yeah. No, I agree. I actually think 2014 Prism is probably the answer that most people will give you. I have that feeling. I'm not sure, but I have that feeling. Because this is the first American product, so that alone is too powerful. So I actually lied. We have a couple of more questions. I'm sorry for that, guys.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, so actually, I forgot I had a couple of questions saved. So another question is this. Hi there. I have a question regarding Prism 2014. Do you think the inserts can hold value in the future? So actually, we are talking about Prism. Ronaldo Cup Captain card is undervalued to the normal card. This is affirmation, by the way. Do Prism 2014 as much a strong brand in the community that the card itself doesn't matter as much? So I did not understand this question that well, but I believe he's trying to ask if the inserts can hold good value long run. Ronaldo World Cup Captain being an example. James, I feel like you probably can provide some value on this one.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about in the last one. The inserts that people are looking for nowadays are the parallels of the base, so the other inserts aren't even really considered. So, I mean, will they hold value? Probably, but will they ever overtake the other ones? I would highly doubt it.
Yeah, but okay, no, I agree with that. But do you think this is a difficult one, to be honest? But do you think the World Cup captains for Messi or Ronaldo? I'm not sure if Messi have one or not, but
Messi doesn't have a cup captains. He has a World Cup star and a net finders.
And the net find. But let's say those two, for example. Do you think those cards they can increase for Messi, or I mean everything can increase to be honest?
Yeah, I mean I think it would move in line with the market, and I wouldn't expect them to ever pass the other ones.
Yeah, but for example, in terms of percentage, do you think those will surpass the base looking at the entry points right now? Or do you think the base probably will still perform better? And even more important than that is safer?
Yeah, no, I think the base would still perform better percentage basis, assuming we're talking about like the like colors, like a blue versus a blue, red versus red, that sort of thing.
Will, how do you see this?
I think that for the key players like Messi, Ronaldo, those sorts of ones, then I think that definitely on like a percentage which would grow in the next 10 more years. Like, I think that like the sports card hobby likes to rank things inherently, and they just rank the base the highest. So I think definitely that the one insert that I will have caveat to is just the Messi Ronaldo matchups. I don't know if that is eventually that will overtake, maybe a Ronaldo base, like possibly. I could actually see that happening. But for in general, I wouldn't say like a solo player insert versus the base insert. I would see the base still having a higher growth percentage than the insert. That being said, I think that with sort of the second tier players, the sort of like really world-class players, like maybe like Neuer, Muller, stuff like that, like those ones they might, or like even Benzema, like if you can find like good prices of those, then and like good entry points, then I think there's like a play to be made there. But I think with like Messi and Ronaldo, it's already fleshed out.
Yep, I would agree with that totally. I think the matchup Messi Ronaldo could be a bit of an exception, since he's a very particular card. But in general, I believe me and James ended up talking about this in the last podcast. I'm not sure if we talk about this on the podcast or was actually offline. But the thing with inserts is nowadays people are not chasing inserts. That's the reality. In the past they did, because inserts had rarity. Right now we have numbered cards for the base card, and that's the chase thing, not the insert. Not saying inserts are bad cards, because that this is so relative, but in general, I would stay away of inserts in modern. In pre-modern, could be a bit different.
I will say, oh, you want to go first?
I was just gonna say the inserts people are chasing nowadays are like the case hit inserts, like Kaboom or Downtown or things like that. It's not the parallels of the inserts that are base cards.
Yeah, I will say also, like, yeah, they're just continuing to make more of it. So like if they never make a matchups, like they, you know, like obviously they made more landmarks in 2022 World Cup Prism, but if they never make another matchups, then that might be interesting. But the insert culture really came from the 90s, you know, with basketball and stuff like that. And I think like we've seen that like stuff where you copy what was popular from basketball in the 90s and translate to soccer doesn't really work as like a whole tactic. Like, you know, we see that with like the beam teams and stuff like that. Like it needs to be organic, right? The beam teams were important for basketball because it meant something in basketball, right? Because it was very hard to find and all of that. And so just making an insert for soccer doesn't change the game unless it's unique to soccer, where the only possible insert that could be is the matchups if they never make it again.
Totally. No, I would agree with that. The matchup is a very particular, is the best insert we have for them, honestly. And we see if a gold appears for them, goes for an insane amount. Even a gold Kaboom nowadays, I don't think competes with the matchup. So, but yeah, great question. Another question. Actually from the same person. I have one more question for your YouTube Q&A. Could we see a big rise in prices in a few years like we saw in 2021 with base cards of the superstars, Haaland, Mbappé, Messi and Ronaldo, like PSA 10s of no numbered refractor cards of the base card? Not some random cards, but for example, 2019 Topps Finest UCL Haaland Refractor, PSA 10, or the 2017 Topps Chrome Refractor Mbappé. The pop of those cards are still very low compared, for example, with Kobe Bryant rookie refractors. If our market explodes in USA, could we see a high demand for those kind of cards? Americans love refractors. Have a nice day. All right. So Americans love refractors. You guys tell me.
Yeah, I mean, we love refractors, but what we love more than refractors is numbered cards, and both those have numbered cards that will be more valuable, obviously, than the refractor, and it takes away market share and all that kind of fun stuff. I wouldn't be comparing soccer pops to basketball pops in any meaningful way. They're fun to look at, but I definitely wouldn't use that as we are an undervalued market because basketball has this many of them. We're comparing apples and oranges. The markets are too different. But in a general sense, those types of cards, Mbappe refractor rookies, Haaland refractor rookies with Salzburg, if the market does continue to evolve and if it reaches a 2x, a 3x, a 4x, or whatever over the next few years, the key cards in the market will increase with the market. So yeah, I would say those are key cards in the market, and therefore they would increase with the market.
Yeah, no, I agree. Eventually, they will be a good buy. It's just I'm not sure if he's right now, but eventually they will be.
Yeah, I don't know what the entry point for that is because none of the entry points have been good since like 2019. So I'm not sure where you buy in at, but even then it's risky because like Mbappe and Haaland, right? Are we sure those are going to be the guys in 5 years when the market explodes, quote unquote, that are going to still be the guys? It looks like it, but we don't know for sure. But in that case, I would rather be on Messi.
Okay, but to make this a bit easier, let's say 2017 Topps Chrome base for Ronaldo and Messi. Do you think those cards can increase over time since the set will be important most likely?
I mean, sure, but right now I wouldn't be looking at base because what's a refractor, like $20 more right now or something ridiculous? If your case in point is that I think base is going to be really valuable in the future, what does that mean for like the refractors and the numbered cards? And then I think that's where you should sort of set your targets, especially right now when they're not that much different in terms of price. Like a base is what, $50 in a PSA 10, a refractor is like 100. And if you want to go up a little higher, you can get a purple 9 for maybe 500-600. So
yeah, it's around 500.
Yeah. It just depends on where your price ranges are. But yeah, I would be working my way up that ladder. If your thinking is base is going to be really valuable, work your way up that ladder.
Yeah, that's sort of where my head goes. It's like what like if you're gonna spend and make a play on that, then like you could probably save up for like a numbered thing. Like even though I prefer lower number stuff, like even like a purple out of 299, if you're thinking about the newer kids, like because I think the question specifically mentioned like Musiala and stuff like that, right?
No, actually, no, Will. This
Oh, okay.
was more about the star players,
Oh, okay, okay.
Alan, Mbappe, Messi, you know.
Yeah, so I think then like with like Holland, like with like Messi, Ronaldo, like like it just like might be worth just getting a numbered one, because when you think about like, oh, like if a refractor is gonna grow in that amount, you're making like a quantity play. You're making a quantity play, but like it's not as assured as like with a numbered card where like if a refractor like 2x is like, think of what like a blue would, how many X that would go for, right? And so I think that would be interesting. And you wouldn't even need like PSA 10s at that point. Like obviously, plastic would command a higher premium, and Andres talked about that. But like, I think that's a thing. I think with like Mbappe and Holland, I agree with James that like we might not know if they're going to be the players in the next 5 years, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. But if you do want to make that, I think it's like again targeting key sets. Like if someone told me, like I'm thinking like if someone walked at a show and at a trade night and was like, hey, I'm making a play on Holland prize footballers, Holland Salzburg finest, because that's the only one with a Salzburg kit, and doing refractors of that, I would be like, that's sound. But personally, like I'd rather like right now in this era of cards, like I think the way I'm thinking about it is like you want to get the biggest cards possible with like what you have, you know, and being responsible, because like the gap between them isn't that much, especially when you are looking in the few hundred ranges. The gap between colors aren't a lot yet, and so why make a play on the smallest factor one, which is like a refractor or a base?
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
I think the point that I'm trying to get at, and that Will probably is referring to, is I'd rather have quality over quantity. I don't think I'd rather have 10 base PSA 10s of like a Messi 2017 Chrome as opposed to having the one purple PSA 9 or something like that. I would much prefer the one purple 9.
yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think. I mean, I think there is a possibility those cards grow again. I just think for the opportunity we have right now in the market, you probably have better stuff to be taking a look. That those can really go parabolic if the market grows. I think this market of base stuff, even refractors, the supply is enough to never have a huge increase all of the sudden. And I think things
The
that
reason
are
it did in the past is because none of it was graded.
exactly, and I think things that are again. I give a shout out to James, for example. He bought the Xavi 2004, no 2003 or 2004,
Yeah, it's
right?
2003.
Yeah,
That was that too.
2003 Mega Cracks. He probably had to pay a decent amount of money, but that type of stuff is where I can see some incredible growth if the market keeps growing, because that stuff is difficult to find. Different place, because you can say, yeah, James can just buy one, I can buy 100 of those and stack, and who knows, but yeah, my perspective is that the quality versus quantity, focus on quality. uh, is not that I think will do better, to be totally transparent. It's just I think it's safer, yeah,
I think also like it's like also asking like, can you do better than that too? Is like, I think you could, right? Especially if, I don't know if this is like, yeah, for star players.
and it's the thing about explored markets versus unexplored. I think that market is explored. Does not mean cannot grow, but look, Will, you bought a couple of months ago a Modric second year. That's a
Yeah.
good example of an explored market that you did very well, right?
Yeah, did
Um,
very, very well with that.
James did not sell his Xavi, but I think that's an explored market that he probably could sell the Xavi right now for more if he wanted, because it's something unique. So
Yeah, I would just never be able to get it back, so I can't.
Yeah,
you
I will
sell
also
it
say
to buy the Ronaldinho, and that would be the move.
That
I
would
will
be the
also
only way I would ever sell it. Yeah.
last quick thing I will also say is like this the silvers and the refractors and the base, like that's coming from like other sports like basketball and football. And I think like also like as the soccer market matures, like we have to think about like what things mean in the soccer market, right? And right now, like people aren't valuing like refractors and that sort of thing. And then the lowest number colored parallel is still like not too unaffordable, from the refractor. So then it's like just like what is your opportunity cost in it?
Good point. Yeah, our market is different. That's also a huge thing. Last question, and this is actually the last question. In your opinion, what is the most important card in the last decade? So in the last 10 years? Oh boy.
Oh man.
I will say the first that came to my mind. Top Scrum 2017 Mbappe. I think that card was really important for our market. But even with Mbappe, I guess you can say 2018 Prism. I think that card
That's
is
what I
also
was gonna say. I was gonna say
crazy.
18 Prism Silver Mbappe.
One of those two probably would be my, at least was the two ones that automatic pop in my mind. But again, you can say 2014 Prism Messi. That card is also super mainstream.
I'm not really too sure because I missed the answer definitely is within the mania and I came at the tail end of that, so I missed all of that, a lot of that hype. So I feel like I can't really think of a card right now.
No problem.
Yeah, I think it's obvious what the sets are though. It's 14 Prism, 17 Chrome, and then 18 Prism for Mbappe specifically. Those were the sets people were talking about. Those are the sets people still talk about. Although funny enough, back then people were also talking about Optic among those, like Optic 2018,
Yeah.
because that had Jadon Sancho, Kai Havertz, and basically any rookie people were chasing at the time was in that product. So those were super hot too when the market exploded.
I mean, if from like an American standpoint, you could argue, then this is a stretch, but I'm curious on James's take on this, is like 2018 Donruss with all the Americans, or 2016 Select with like the Pulisic.
Yeah, I mean it had its place, but it wasn't like super hot or anything. Like even
Yeah,
even 2016 select Christian Pulisic, the base and the silver, those were nowhere near the mania that was around like the Mbappe Prism stuff or even the base stuff of
interesting.
2014 Prism.
That
Like
makes sense.
those were on like a whole different planet. The Prism stuff was insane.
I mean, when I entered the market, there was already people talking about Chrome 2017 and for Mbappe. For the other players, not really actually, but for Mbappe and the Prism and the Chrome card ended up being huge. And even at the time, there was a debate what was the true hook in terms of card.
And it wasn't even the numbered stuff. People didn't talk about the numbered stuff back then. It was either the base or the silver refractors.
I would say one thing. I think actually the Prism card was even a bit more popular at the time. I think over time that actually will change. I think the Chrome probably will surpass, but Prism 2018 could be one of the cards that really started our market. I even remember people comparing that with Luca Prism. So yeah, that could be the most important card in terms of hype. But actually, let's shift a bit this question. What will actually be the most impactful card in our market in the future in the last 10 years? Or of the last 10 years, better saying. Could still be Mbappe, to be honest. I mean, 10 years, I would say probably Messi Gold Prism.
Yeah, if I wasn't picking the problem with those guys is it's clear their rookies are so much prior. I would just say whatever the key rookie is of the guy that ends up being the guy for like post Messi and post Ronaldo. So if it's Mbappe, it's going to be whichever ends up being the Mbappe key. If it's Holland, it's going to be whatever ends up being the Holland key. Then I would say those.
No, I agree with that. Will.
Yeah. Say something different, like, and I know it's been pulled, is it would be really interesting to see the 1-of-1 black Messi Ronaldo matchups from 2014 World Cup Prism. I've seen a photo of it raw. I don't know if it's ever going to come to market, but I think that could be a really important card just because of what the Messi Ronaldo era was for so many people.
I actually just thought of one, and this is a good hot take one. What about the 2022 World Cup sticker, the black one for Messi, the 101?
Ooh, that is interesting.
Yeah, could be that. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of. I know I forgot his name, but the person that opens Chrome a lot is chasing the 1-of-1 Chrome Mbappe, the super fractor. That card would be huge. So could also be that again.
Still be huge with how Mbappe's been performing.
Still huge. I mean,
yeah, it's still it would be the most expensive Mbappe card ever sold. I mean,
yes,
sure.
That's fair. I guess.
I mean, Mbappe. Even if I agree that Mbappe market is a bit scary, to be honest, but Mbappe is still a huge prospect. He's with Haaland right there, So
yeah, that's fair.
Guys, thank you so much. 2 hours, it's crazy. Any final thoughts before we end this?
I think we've probably covered any question anybody could have.
So the idea of this, I'm sorry, the idea of this was actually doing live. So, but I even said there is no way. We have too many questions because we'd probably ignore chat all the time. So.
Yeah, chat would be asking additional questions, so that would be tough.
That would be insane. Will, any final thoughts?
I think it's a really exciting time to see sort of how the soccer market will deviate from the American sports market. I think that's something that came out of the questions that I'm going to be thinking a lot more about moving forward. And I think it's a really fun, interesting puzzle to try to figure out.
Will, since you came in during like the tail end of the Mania sort of phase, what's your read on the market like right now compared to that?
Yeah, so I missed the whole Silver Prism, all of that. I feel like the market's in a really good place. Like I feel like it's exciting. I think that there are less people. I feel like there are more collectors, but cards are being transacted less. I feel like things on eBay aren't selling as much. I think there is like sort of still a post World Cup hangover, and I don't know what's going to wake up the market right now. So from a buying opportunity, I see a lot of opportunities with a lot of things selling. Like, like I wanted to bid on like some of the cards even Andre posted on PWCC recently and stuff like that. I think for selling, it's really about selling when a kid is hot, like when Balgan declared for the US, or just taking the loss so that you can raise funds for something that you might not see pop up again, and I think we're also in this weird period where we aren't seeing everything pop up as much, from key cards, from key sets, from really hard stuff to find. But the prices aren't also like skyrocketing when the harder to find stuff is popping up, right? Like, even though, for example, 71 Biz isn't coming up, there's not like 10 71 Bizes on PWCC anymore. Like, the prices haven't reflected that. It's still sort of the same prices. And so I feel like the market's sleeping a little bit. And I'm not saying that in a way for like, oh, like there's opportunities to like stonk or 20x or whatever like that. But I think it just feels like a really good time to be a collector. And then if you want to hold long term, I think there's opportunity there. And it's something that I feel confident about. And personally for me, I feel like I'm at a race with time to get like a PSA 8 71 Biz, because I could see that coming up at some point.
This week, I saw, because I'm not going to do the live on Friday, so I checked the PLCC weekly, and I saw there is a lot of Messi's there, the 7-on Bs. I believe I saw 2 BGS 9s, right?
Yeah, there's a PSA 8 in back-to-back weeks on PWCC.
So maybe there will be some good prices there.
I think it's a good time to prep, whether that's learning how to grade, learning how to source stuff from other countries, and then making a little bit now. But like, if you're thinking, a year or two down the line with the World Cup and hoping for like a rise, like I think it's a good time to do preparatory work or build up, some Grail cards along the way if you have the funds for it.
No.
Yeah, I think the market's in its most stagnant point it's been in since the crazy stuff that's happened over the past 3 or 4 years. Like, I don't think the market's going to drop another 50% over the next 6 months, and I don't think the market's going to go up 50% over the next 6 months. I think it's very likely to stay within a 10% margin, positive or negative, assuming nothing goes crazy in the economy. It just seems like we're in a very stagnant period right now.
Yeah, and I just don't see any like key events happening really, like the like in the grand scheme of the sport, it's hard to think that the biggest thing that's happening is Messi like coming back to Barca or going to the MLS. Not even retiring. Like, how is that the biggest event possible for our sport? Which means to say that there isn't a lot riding on anything right now. Ronaldo didn't win the Saudi Arabian League. Man City will probably win the treble, and Holland will go up 2%. Messi will go back to Barca. Messi will go up 5%. Like imaginary numbers, but like nothing big is happening right now. And yeah,
I think right now the market is probably the way it should be. I think we are at the point that I think the worst is already done. Also, that does not mean things cannot go down. What I mean is the super strong crash, I think is done, honestly. I think cards can keep going down. That's a different thing. And I think right now we'll see more of organic growth, honestly. We see more people entering the market. We see certain really difficult cards disappearing in the market. I believe in that a lot. And this will be a cycle, when there is the next World Cup, there will always be this narrative that the market may explode, may not. I think next year the Copa America in America is quite huge, actually. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's a really, really important tournament, especially because it could be the last tournament for Messi with Argentina. Also believe that the American team have a chance to win that. I know it's a hot take, but I think it's possible. I don't think they are favorites. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, right now, let's say the next 12 months, putting that Copa America in the horizon, I think will be really, really good if you are a collector, if you are buying. If you are selling, I'm not sure. But if you are buying, I think the next 12 months are amazing.
I will say also, just last thing is, like, I feel like things are a little bit more simplified in the plays that you're making. Like, if you want to do long term, you know who to get, what sets, what players. And then, if you want to raise funds, it's through trading and mainly flipping modern, very ultra modern stuff, which has its risks. And then the riskiest is prospecting, which has the highest reward. Like, it's not anymore like, oh, like I could buy this Messi card, like, and this is what I imagine the boom was, James, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like the upside of buying a Messi card then versus, I don't know, like a Havertz or an Ansu Fati or whatever was actually debatable. Like, you could make more money buying the Ansu Fati card versus here it's like just much simpler, where it's like, if I'm buying a Zidane card, like that's not gonna go up in a crazy amount in the next 12 months, but it's low risk versus like if I buy, I don't know, like an Osimhen card or a Kavicha card is a good example, then like you're playing that game and it's a lot more flat, like obvious, rather than when everything's going up back in like 2020, 2021.
Yep. I think it's the market, actually, in my opinion, is the easiest it's ever been to read in terms of based on what you're looking to do, kind of sets you on very obvious paths. If you're focused on long term, you're buying the goats of the goats, the most key cards, and you're just holding for a long period of time, and that's all you're going to do. You're not buying a 71 biz to flip in 6 months or to flip in a year and hope it 2x's, because that's just not what this market is anymore. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And then if you're playing the ultra modern game, you're going after prospects, you're hoping your money explodes or you lose. And so I think the market's actually super easy to understand at this point.
Yeah, or you raw degrade. Also.
Yeah, or you raw degrade. Yeah,
for sure. Guys, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure, like always, to have you both on. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. This is actually not a podcast. I'm sorry. Hope you guys enjoyed I guess it also can be
the movie.
Enjoyed the Q&A, and see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.